I'm back, and it's time to discuss some of the movies that Disney announced at D23. Hey everybody, Blood Moon Bobby here, finally back. I know I keep saying that in every video, but over the past couple weeks I decided to take a little time off from YouTube just so I didn't become overly consumed by all the crazy stuff that's been happening, and I feel like I just kind of let my fears from watching a lot of news videos recently just really get to me and start worrying about all the every possible scary thing that could happen to me and my channel, and it got me freaked out and it made me hard for me to view things objectively. So I decided to take a little break. But I was definitely going to talk about some of the announcements made at D23, which is, Disney's really big expo where they announce movie announcements and other upcoming projects. Now, me and my sis, we actually did get to go to D23 on the Sunday show, but unfortunately, the trip was honestly kind of a disaster. It wasn't the convention's fault. It was just, really difficult circumstances leading up to that convention that made it very difficult for us to work together to film on that day, and we were just not really in the best mood. So I have some footage that you could look at in this video of what D23 was like and some of the really cool things we saw, some of which I will talk about. I think especially in future videos, there's definitely going to be more videos about D23 announcements and that sort of a thing. But for this video in particular, I wanted to focus more on the movie announcements that Disney made at D23, specifically from Walt Disney Pictures and Pixar. I mean, I know there are other announcements made that you could look up in terms of Marvel and Star Wars announcements, and there's going to be a couple others that I'm not going to be talking about this video. I'm not going to talk about Jungle Cruise and Maleficent, the sequel, only because I honestly don't really have too much to say, and I'm not really interested in either movie. I'm also not going to be talking about Frozen 2 in this video because I researched a lot about some announcements of Frozen 2. I know they showed off a flashback scene, but I couldn't really think of much more to say on top of what I already discussed in terms of Frozen 2. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Frozen 2, at least from the trailers that I've seen, be sure to go watch our trailer discussions on Frozen 2. And even though this video is going to be about the top 4 movies that sort of interested me from what I've researched about D23, it doesn't necessarily mean that, I like them. It's just, it just kind of struck me as, oh, I might want to talk about it. For the most part, it's good, but there's going to be one movie on this list that I'm kind of about, which I'll actually get into right now, and that is the Cruella movie starring Emma Stone, because we all wanted a Cruella movie in this era of Disney live-action remakes. And honestly, the premise of this movie, I'm not really sold on the premise. So, Cosmopolitan said, and by the way, all my sources for this video will be linked down below in the description. Cosmopolitan said that the movie is going to be a prequel that's focusing on a young Cruella, and it's going to take place in the 1970s, which is weird because the Disney animated 101 Dalmatians came out in the 60s, and it's going to take place at a time when Cruella was really kind of a sort of punkish sort of kid, and it'll be basically about a prequel that leads up to her days becoming this really crazy villain that wanted to turn a whole bunch of Dalmatians into fur coats. The premise, honestly, all I really hear when I think of the premise is just Disney marketing, just in terms of hey, we need to put out another Disney live action remake, and oh, what about 101 Dalmatians? Oh, wait a minute, we already made 2 101 Dalmatian live action movies, so it's just what could we do? Oh, let's make a prequel of Cruella, even though not many people are wondering, what exactly is her backstory. So it's just, let's do it. And it's just yeah, I mean, here's a picture that Disney put up in terms of how Emma Stone looks as Cruella. I'm wondering if there's 2 dudes in the background in that photo. Are they supposed to be Horace and Jasper, the henchmen from 101 Dalmatians? I can't confirm, but that's what they seem like. And I don't know what it is about Emma Stone. I just can't take, at least from that photo. Oh, I'm wondering if she's gonna have like, all kinds of like different hairstyles, just like what Glenn Close had in the live action 101 Dalmatians movies. But I don't know what it is about her makeup. She just looks really kind of goofy in that photo. And I know somebody, I think on Twitter, said that she looks like Helena Bonham Carter in that shot, but okay, Disney's making a Cruella movie, and it's also going to have Emma Thompson, Paul Walter Hauser, and Joel Fry, and it's coming out on May 28th, 2021, and Gizmodo said that the film has already started shooting. Whoopee, I can't wait to see that. Not really. Next one, and now we're going to get into the ones that I'm definitely pretty excited about. The first one I'll talk about is Soul. You might remember I made a video on that a while back. It's the Pete Docter movie that explores, well, as the title implies, souls and how you develop your interests. And now we got some pretty big specifics in terms of what's the premise of this movie and who's the star. So in Soul, Jamie Foxx plays this band teacher named Joe Gardner, but his ultimate ambition is that he wants to become a jazz musician, and he gets his big break when he finds out that he's going to play at New York's The Half Note Club. Well, what happens to Joe is that, according to the LA Times, he falls into a sewer that takes him to a place called the U Seminar, and IndieWire said and that through this place, Joe will have to discover what it means to have a soul. And the LA Times basically went into more detail, saying this includes developing your anxieties, fears, and passions. So a lot of people are already making a lot of Inside Out comparisons, and yeah, it definitely does sound like, I guess, sound very similar to Inside Out, even down to having the same director take on this project, which probably means it's going to be super feelsy and heartwarming, considering that Pete Docter was also the guy who directed Up and, as I said, Inside Out. So it's definitely really interesting. Glad we got some new details. I'm definitely looking forward to this. I pretty much like every feature film that Pete Docter has made, especially his more recent movies have been some of Pixar's most emotional projects. So very curious to see where this goes. I mean, the premise itself obviously lends itself, it sounds like it's going to lend itself to a lot of feelsy scenes, I'm pretty sure they're going to have scenes where, like, Joe, is, like, super passionate about becoming a jazz musician, and he's probably going to have, like, his doubts along the way, just in terms of, he's probably wondering, am I going to make it? How am I going to do this and that? How am I going to do this, as I become a really amazing jazz musician? But I'm sure he'll remember, deep down, he is a good musician. So Soul is set to come out on June 19th, 2020, and the movie will also star Questlove, who I might know from The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, as well as Felicia Rashad and Tina Fey. So definitely looking forward to Soul. It definitely sounds like it's going to be, I guess, kind of like I think that's the thing, because you know how in Inside Out, how most of the action took place with the character Riley's emotions, and Riley was an external character outside of the emotion characters. I'm kind of wondering if Soul's going to be a thing where this time, instead of like going inside the mind of a character, you're actually going to see the protagonist come along with the more like fantastical characters as Joe starts to discover himself. So I'm thinking that's what it's probably going to be, but I'm definitely really excited for Soul. And speaking of Pixar projects, they also talked about their other upcoming movie that I did a trailer discussion to, and that is Onward. You might remember it is Dan Scanlon's movie about the two brothers played by Chris Pratt and Tom Holland as they go out in their van and try to see if they can find the last piece of magic in their very modern, still fantastical, but overall really modern sort of world. And we got some more details. I knew from doing research on Onward that it was very much inspired by how Dan Scanlon, his father, passed away really early on, and he wanted to learn more about him. And we got some more plot details at D23 in terms of, well, basically what kickstarts the whole story of Onward. And basically what happens is that the two brothers try to basically resurrect their dad using a spell, but what happens is they're able to resurrect him, but basically they only got the bottom half of him back. Like they just basically got the legs of the dad to come back. And they need this gem in order to get their spell fully working, but they better hurry up because their father is going to disappear in 24 hours, at least according to the LA Times. So once again, it sounds like, for different reasons obviously, but it still sounds like it's still going to be a really quite emotional adventure. This time, unlike Soul, which seems to be more focused on things like, developing things like your personality and emotions, and realizing what your true interests are in. It's Onward sounds like it's going to be much more of a sort of father-son kind of relationship, mixed in with the sort of fantasy stuff we often associate with Disney. Pixar, I mean, obviously has delved into like fantastical films in the past, most notably Brave, but it does sound like, it's also going to be a really, emotional whole adventure film. The cast sounds really promising. It does star Tom Holland, Chris Pratt, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Octavia Spencer. And the movie comes out next March. So yeah, Pixar is going to have 2 movies coming out in 2020. So it definitely sounds really exciting. And the last film I'll talk about in this video, it's probably the most original on this list in terms of this isn't a movie that I was really all that aware about prior to D23, and that is Walt Disney Animation's upcoming movie. It's called Raya and the Last Dragon. So it's going to be set in this Southeast Asian sort of world. I heard that the filmmakers, they researched countries like Cambodia, Laos, and they also researched Bali to make this movie. And the movie is going to be about a character named Raya, and she has to find this lost dragon in order to save her people. The movie itself is going to be set in a fictional country, but it does sound like, it's going to be very influenced by research done in Southeast Asia. The character of Raya will be played by Cassie Steele, and interestingly, the dragon, who is named Cece, is actually going to be played by Awkwafina, who you might know from especially Crazy Rich Asians. And speaking of Crazy Rich Asians, the script for Raya and the Last Dragon was actually written by the film's screenwriter Adele Lim. So I'm kind of expecting that there's going to be some comedy involved. I mean, looking back on Crazy Rich Asians, it was a comedy drama. It had some pretty funny moments. It wasn't the kind of, laugh out loud, like I wouldn't consider it like a laugh out loud knee slapping sort of a movie, but it was definitely really entertaining, and Awkwafina played a really enjoyable character. I remember I actually got to see Crazy Rich Asians twice, and I know that my dad and sis especially got a real kick out of watching her character in that movie. So it probably, I mean, obviously, this sounds like it's going to be a much more fantastical movie, but I would expect a mix of comedy and drama, much like we've seen in past Disney films. And Disney themselves said that to basically expect a sort of Hong Kong action like sort of feel to the movie. So there's probably going to be a lot of like martial arts style action in the movie. So it definitely does sound promising. I'm looking forward to learning more about Raya and the Last Dragon, maybe seeing a trailer that we'll all be able to see on the internet. The movie comes out Thanksgiving 2020. I definitely like the premise. It sounds like they have a good cast and crew behind this movie, and I can't wait to see what Disney does with Raya and the Last Dragon. And I'm probably the most blown away by Raya and the Last Dragon. Not that Onward and Soul, I think are going to be bad. They actually sound like they're going to like the 3 movies that I talked about sound like they're going to be pretty damn good movies. But Raya and the Last Dragon, especially, maybe because it was the one movie that was basically unannounced prior to D23, it's probably why I'm walking away thinking, oh yeah, this is the one that really got me pumped. So yeah, overall, at least among the 4 movies here, I would say Disney has a pretty solid lineup in terms of what they're making with their animated movies. I definitely like that they're coming out with, Disney Pixar's coming out with Soul and Onward, and Disney themselves, Frozen 2 is obviously on the way, and they announced that they're making this is pretty cool sounding, Raya and the Last Dragon. And Cruella, I mainly talked about Cruella in this video mainly because I sort of knew about this project but didn't really talk about it in the video before because I didn't really have that many concrete details to go off of. And also I did watch the live action 101 Dalmatian movies as a kid, 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians, the two that star Glenn Close. And yeah, I mean obviously, I can't set my expectations on Cruella based on the two Glenn Close movies because, well, it's basically years later. But to go off on a tangent for just a little bit, I will say that I was honestly kind of bored watching 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians when I was a kid. I mean, Glenn Close as Cruella was, the obvious standout. I mean, especially, like, basically, whenever, she was on screen, she definitely made an impact. But I don't know. I mean, just the premise of Cruella, just this idea of, oh, it's going to be set in the 70s when Cruella was, this really sort of punkish kid. It just kind of sounds like a mix of Disney trying to capitalize on one of their most famous villains, as well as this idea of, hey, let's make her really, really hip and cool and stuff, because that's what the kids will really like. But I would say overall, 3 of the movies that I talked about definitely sound really promising. But please let me know your thoughts down below. Are you interested in any of the 4 films, as well as the other ones that Disney talked about at D23? Like, they did talk about, like, the Jungle Cruise live action movie, Frozen 2, and Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you guys for watching. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to leave a comment. Subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell to get notified when I release my latest videos. Follow me at Blood Moon Bobby on your favorite social media platforms to take part in polls, see my tech tips, and to hear about my video plans. Thanks for watching.